what if the secret to surviving, a massive high-stakes project isn't about pulling all-nighters or just obsessing over every little detail,
Right, yeah.
but actually treating it exactly like a rigid, boring 9-to-5 job?
I mean, it sounds completely
Yeah, it
backwards.
really does. But that exact moment, you've just been handed this sprawling initiative.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe you're starting a business or leading a new corporate division or even just pursuing a massive personal goal, and suddenly the training wheels are off.
Yeah, they're completely gone.
There's no clear roadmap.
Yeah.
There are no daily deadlines, and absolutely no one is checking your homework.
Which is terrifying.
Right. There's this heavy kind of vague expectation that you're going to deliver something brilliant somewhere down the line.
And for most people, that overwhelming transition from having, structure to having absolute freedom, it's enough to induce a minor panic attack.
Definitely.
It is the ultimate double-edged sword of knowledge work. Because we all crave autonomy, right? Until we actually get it.
Yes.
Exactly. Be careful what you wish for.
And then the realization hits that total autonomy requires a completely different operational system than the one we were trained on in school, or even in entry-level jobs.
So true. So today, we are getting into a deep dive based on a highly candid academic script.
It's a really fascinating source.
It really is. It details exactly what doctoral supervisors secretly wish their PhD students knew on day one.
The unwritten rules.
Exactly. But here is why you, the listener, need to lean in. We are going to unpack the unwritten rules of surviving the academic gauntlet, sure, but this is far more than just a survival guide for grad school.
Oh, way more. The skills required to survive a doctorate are the exact same skills required to navigate any high-stakes, unstructured environment.
We're basically looking at a masterclass in independent problem solving.
Yes. Managing up and tackling massive long-term projects without burning out. I mean, the days of simply following a manual are largely over for modern professionals. Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can even talk about the day-to-day tactics of surviving a massive project, we have to address the fundamental identity crisis that catches people off guard when they start.
That identity crisis is huge.
The source calls this the transition from a student mindset to a researcher, or an apprentice mindset.
And that mindset shift is where so many people stumble right out of the gate.
Right.
Think about a standard taught degree like your undergrad or even a master's.
Or your first corporate job, even.
Exactly. The environment is heavily structured. Your productivity is rewarded very quickly.
You get a syllabus, right?
You receive a syllabus or a list of deliverables. You perform a task set by someone else. You get a grade or a performance review, and you get that dopamine hit.
You move on to the next thing.
Yep, you move on.
It makes me think of an analogy. Going through that structured environment is a lot like doing a paint by numbers.
Oh, I like that.
The lines are drawn, you know exactly what color goes in what shape,
Right.
and if you stay inside the lines, you get a beautiful picture at the end. Everyone is happy.
Right, it's guaranteed.
But stepping into this researcher mindset, stepping into an independent project, it's like someone hands you a completely blank canvas, a few raw chemicals, and just says, go invent a new color.
And the panic sets in. Because people sit in front of that blank canvas, literally waiting for an instructor to tell them which brush to pick up.
Yes.
But an unstructured research environment completely removes those transactional dopamine hits. Success no longer means following instructions well.
Because there are no instructions.
Right. Success means taking absolute ownership of the project from day one. You're no longer just absorbing knowledge, You're expected to make informed, independent choices.
And when you lose the syllabus, you essentially have to build your own scaffolding.
You have to.
This is where the source emphasizes setting up a robust workflow immediately. Like, if you are staring at a blank canvas, you cannot rely on your memory or someone else's deadlines.
No, that's a recipe for disaster.
You have to actively build the architecture of your project using tools like Todoist to track your daily tasks, or a database like Notion to structure your literature and meeting notes.
You have to build the framework before the house gets too heavy.
Exactly.
And that scaffolding is really the foundation of what we call managing up. Yeah,
Let's talk about that.
Because if you're sitting there waiting for instructions, you fundamentally misunderstand the relationship you have with your supervisor or your boss or your board of directors.
The power dynamic is flipped.
Completely flipped. The project lead, you, is the one responsible for the momentum. The supervisor is a guide, not a manager who is going to monitor your daily tasks.
They aren't checking your timesheets.
No. In
Okay.
the academic context, university guidelines are actually very clear about this. It is the advisor's duty to be reasonably available, but the primary responsibility for driving the research rests squarely on the student.
You are essentially the CEO of your project. And your advisor is your advisory board. They aren't going to call you to make sure you're updating your spreadsheets.
You definitely aren't.
So if you are the one driving, you have to be highly strategic about how you use that advisory board, because you are inevitably going to hit roadblocks. The sources are very clear that things will go wrong.
Oh, they always go wrong.
So how do you effectively use a supervisor without becoming that annoying person who constantly knocks on their door in a panic?
Well, it starts with defining the structure of your communication. The source strongly recommends proactively setting regular, recurring one-on-one meetings.
Like putting it on the calendar permanently.
Exactly. Weekly or biweekly. Do not rely on ad hoc catch-ups.
Because if you just tell yourself you'll grab them when you need them, you will drift.
Yeah, absolutely drift. A dedicated time slot forces you to synthesize your progress, identify your roadblocks, and just stay disciplined.
And the sources also make a distinction about meeting spaces that I found fascinating.
Oh, the group versus one-on-one dynamic?
Yes. They point out that a lot of supervisors run group lab meetings. But you have to understand the specific purpose of that room.
Right.
Group meetings are for high-level peer updates. They are absolutely not the place to do a deep dive into a specific technical glitch you are having with your software.
No, nobody wants to hear that in a group meeting.
And they are definitely not the place to discuss personal struggles or mental health issues.
That is what the recurring one-on-one is for.
Exactly.
And reading the room, using the right form for the right issue, that's a massive part of professional maturity.
Yeah.
And when you do bring an issue to that one-on-one, you cannot simply drop it on their desk and expect them to fix it. Supervisors want a troubleshooter, not a problem reporter.
But wait, I have to ask, isn't that incredibly inefficient?
How do you mean?
I just want to push back on this on behalf of anyone listening who is managing a complex project. If I spend 3 days troubleshooting a jammed centrifuge or a broken line of code with a peer, when the supervisor could have fixed it in 10 seconds because they have 20 years of experience,
Yeah.
hasn't the project just lost 3 days of momentum? How does the source justify that loss of time?
What's fascinating here is that it seems inefficient in the short term, right? But relying solely on your supervisor for every technical hurdle is a strategy that leads directly to isolation.
Wow.
And a failure to develop your own skills. Your supervisor's primary value to you is not in debugging line 42 of your code.
That's a really good point.
Their value is in big picture conceptualization, interpreting complex results, and career mentoring. When you ask them the small stuff, you are wasting the most valuable resource they offer.
So you're saying the 3 days spent thrashing around trying to fix the code is actually the process of learning how to be an independent researcher.
Exactly that. And it forces you to engage with an entire ecosystem of support right next to you.
The horizontal network.
Yes, the horizontal network.
Yeah.
These are your peers, the postdocs, the senior lab members, the other trainees in your department.
The people in the trenches with you.
Right. If you have a minor bug, or you need an example of how to fill out arcane departmental paperwork, you go to your horizontal network first.
That makes a lot of sense, especially when you think about the tools you use to manage your work. If you're using a reference manager like Zotero, for example, you don't go to the head of the department to ask how to format a citation.
No, they probably don't even remember how to do it anyway.
Right. You share a Zotero library with your peers, you build a shared repository of knowledge, and you troubleshoot the software together.
And building that horizontal network is crucial for your future, because these are the people you are going to be writing papers with and applying for grants with for your entire career.
Wow. Yeah. I hadn't thought about it that way.
And when you do finally escalate a problem to your supervisor, the unwritten rule is to always bring a list of what you have already tried.
So you show your work.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
changes the dynamic from, I am helpless, please save me, to, I am a researcher facing a complex problem. Here's my methodology for trying to solve it. Where's the flaw in my approach?
That subtle shift completely redefines you from a task executor to a project leader.
It really does.
So, okay, you have established your recurring meetings.
Yeah.
You lean on your horizontal network. You build your scaffolding in Notion, and you do your own troubleshooting.
You're doing everything right.
And then you sit down, you write your first major draft, you submit your work, and reality hits.
Mm-hmm.
The expectations of excellence violently clash with your own.
Oh, yeah.
The inevitable collision.
Yes.
This is where the emotional toll of unstructured work really surfaces.
The sources talk about the shock of the red ink.
Yes, the red ink.
The psychological impact here is wild to me. The source mentions students literally going silent for weeks, ghosting their advisors,
Yes.
just to emotionally recover from the heavy edits they get on their early drafts.
It is a profound shock to the system. Because you have to remember, most people who enter a PhD program, or frankly get tapped to lead a major corporate initiative, they've been high achievers their entire lives.
Right. They're the A-plus students. Exactly. They're accustomed to getting A's. They're used to being told their work is brilliant. So when they get a draft back that is just bleeding red ink, they read it as a statement of their worth.
They take it personally.
Very personal.
They immediately spiral into imposter syndrome, thinking they don't belong there. Which is why the sources highly recommend establishing a formal mentor-mentee compact or an individual development plan, an IDP, on day one.
Yes, the IDP is crucial.
But hold on, I have to ask, what does an individual development plan actually look like in practice?
Well, it's not as scary as it sounds.
Are we talking about a legally binding human resources contract? Or is it just a shared Google Doc where we agree on how quickly Slack messages get answered?
This raises an important question about how formal these relationships need to be. It is much closer to a shared, living document. It doesn't have to be overly bureaucratic at all.
Okay, good.
An IDP is really just a framework to openly discuss expectations that usually go unspoken.
Like what kind of expectations?
Like, what are the expected working hours? What is the expected turnaround time for feedback on a draft?
Oh, that makes sense.
What does the supervisor actually consider a first draft to be? Clarifying these terms before the friction starts prevents those silent periods of ghosting later on.
Because setting those ground rules helps reframe the red ink.
Yeah.
The student has to understand that the advisor is marking up that early draft the exact same way they would ruthlessly review a manuscript for a top-tier peer-reviewed journal.
Right. Detaching your ego from the draft is essential here. The red ink is not an attack, it's coaching.
Right.
It's an induction into a standard of academic or professional excellence. A great researcher or a great employee has to be highly coachable. You have to recognize the vital difference between seeking personal validation and achieving excellence.
But it works both ways, right? The student has to respect the standard of excellence, but they also have to respect the advisor's time by adhering to basic professional courtesies.
Oh, absolutely.
The sources highlight some major red flags for supervisors, like sending sloppy drafts.
Yeah, that's a big one.
We are talking about typos, missing sections, unformatted tables.
I mean, if a supervisor is spending their cognitive energy fixing your spelling or your formatting, they are not spending it on your ideas.
Exactly.
You always want to polish your work to the absolute best of your current ability before asking for their eyes on it.
And the sources also list a few other specific courtesies. Always respond to emails within 3 business days.
Basic communication.
Right. Don't disappear into the void when the imposter syndrome hits.
Please don't ghost your boss.
And when it comes to reference letters, give your recommenders a minimum of 2 to 4 weeks lead time.
That is so important.
I really want to emphasize the mechanism behind this one, because it's not just an arbitrary polite rule.
Right.
Think about your advisor's workflow. They are likely juggling grant deadlines, peer reviews of other papers, teaching classes, managing an entire lab.
They are incredibly busy.
So a Friday request for a Monday letter completely disrupts their ecosystem. Asking for 4 weeks isn't just polite, it acknowledges their operational reality.
In doing so builds massive professional capital. It shows you understand that you are part of a larger ecosystem, not the center of it.
So we have this intense standard of excellence. You are absorbing red ink, you are managing up, you are taking on all this cognitive load to build your own structure.
It's a lot.
The obvious risk here is that you are going to crash by month 3.
Yeah, burnout is incredibly common.
How does the source suggest surviving that emotional toll without burning out? This brings us to some of the most counterintuitive advice in the entire material.
How to pace the marathon.
Yes, how to pace it,
People often enter these unstructured environments thinking they can sprint a 5-year project.
which is physically impossible.
Right. And the culture itself often encourages performative suffering.
Ugh, yes,
Yeah.
the toxic pressure to just hang around the lab all day and night just to look busy.
Proving your commitment through physical exhaustion serves absolutely no one, least of all the research.
Yeah.
The data in these sources suggests the most successful, resilient students Treat their massive independent project like a strict 9-to-5 job.
Setting those boundaries sounds almost rebellious in an environment that praises the all-nighter.
It is a bit rebellious, but you have to establish clear routines. Work intensely during the day, and then actively switch off in the evenings. Delineate your work time from your personal time.
Right.
Furthermore, in many university structures, students on 12-month stipends are guaranteed a minimum of 2 weeks of annual vacation.
And people don't take it.
Exactly. The advice is to actually take it. Give your advisor notice and leave to recharge without guilt.
Because without that boundary, you collapse under the weight of the ambiguity.
You will.
But okay, if I treat it like a 9-to-5, I feel like I have to completely redefine my concept of productivity.
How so?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. The sources explicitly state that at this level of work, thinking is work.
Yes. Thinking is work.
Conceptual understanding is the foundation of the project. And you might go weeks without producing a single page of text.
Which is terrifying for a lot of people.
Exactly. How do you actually internalize that? Because if I sit in a chair from 9 to 5 and don't produce a single tangible thing all week, the anxiety of that invisible labor must be overwhelming.
Oh, it is.
How do you justify to yourself that you are actually working?
That anxiety is incredibly real. I mean, we are conditioned by a highly industrialized society to equate tangible output with value.
Right.
If I made 10 widgets today, I had a good day.
Right. I was productive.
But if I made 0 widgets, I am a failure. But producing text without the conceptual framework is like trying to build a roof before you've poured the foundation.
You just end up with a pile of expensive shingles on the dirt.
Exactly.
So staring out the window thinking about a methodology for 3 days is actually the heavy lifting.
It really is. If you rush the thinking phase just to get to the typing phase to alleviate your own anxiety, you will spend months unraveling the mess you made.
Because the concept was flawed.
Right. The conceptualization is the foundation.
That makes total sense for the thinking phase. But eventually, you do have to write.
You do.
And that brings up the opposite problem.
Yeah.
The perfectionism freeze.
Oh, the dreaded blank page.
When you stare at the blank page and realize it has to meet that ruthless standard of excellence we talked about earlier.
The most powerful strategy the sources offer for overcoming that freeze is to completely separate the process of creation from the process of editing.
Because trying to do both at the same time is what causes total stagnation.
Yes.
Like, if I am staring at a blank screen, while simultaneously trying to edit a sentence I haven't even finished typing yet, my brain just locks up.
And that lockup happens because creation and editing use 2 entirely different cognitive mechanisms.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Creation is generative. It requires flow, openness, and lowering your internal filter.
Okay.
Editing is analytical and critical. It requires evaluation and judgment.
So they fight each other.
Exactly. You cannot brainstorm and critique simultaneously because the mechanisms inherently conflict. You have to give yourself permission to write badly first.
Just get their raw, messy, terrible words onto the page.
Exactly. You can fix a bad draft, but you cannot fix a blank page.
I love that.
And the sources offer a brilliant mantra for this. A finished thesis beats an unfinished masterpiece.
Oof. That's a good one.
The pursuit of the masterpiece is usually just an excuse for procrastination. You have to accept that your final, completed dissertation is never going to look like the elegant, pristine proposal you designed on day 1.
It's going to mutate.
Yeah. Original research, like any original project, is inherently non-linear and messy.
But the messy evolution isn't a sign of failure. It's proof that you are actually doing original work.
Exactly.
There is a profound relief in knowing that you are supposed to write badly on the first draft.
Yeah.
Just get the clay on the wheel, then you can sculpt it.
That's a great way to put it.
So as we bring all of this together, there are a few specific day 1 habits we can extract for you, the listener, regardless of what massive project you are tackling.
A critical cognitive habit to develop immediately is to always ask, so what?
So what?
Yeah, whenever you are reading a paper, designing an experiment, or writing a paragraph, ask yourself why it matters. Defining your core arguments early ensures every piece of work explicitly justifies its place in your larger objective.
That's brilliant. Another crucial takeaway is to settle for good enough on those early drafts. Let go of the masterpiece and just trust the iterative process of getting the red ink.
It's all part of the process.
And finally, when you make a mistake, reframe it immediately. Instead of spiraling into imposter syndrome, ask yourself, what can I learn from this?
That reframing moves you from a place of shame to a place of curiosity, which is really where resilience is born. It's a marathon. You cannot sprint it, and you certainly cannot run it while beating yourself up.
Whether you are writing a PhD thesis, launching a startup, or stepping into a new leadership role, you have to show yourself some compassion along the way.
Absolutely.
The professional world places immense value on excellence, but it often overlooks our shared human fallibility.
It really does.
Taking a weekend off to recharge is a victory. Writing one terrible page of text is a victory.
Because you are forcing yourself to become the master of your own momentum.
Which brings us to a final thought for you to mull over today. We just spent this time unpacking how the key to surviving a deeply passion-driven intellectual pursuit like academia is actually to treat it exactly like a rigid 9-to-5 job,
Right.
while simultaneously managing up like a proactive CEO.
It's quite the paradox.
It is. But if this messy, autonomous, unstructured trial by fire is what actually creates such resilient, independent thinkers, does the modern corporate workplace have it entirely backwards?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Think about it. Most companies train new hires by handing them a rigid list of preset tasks, micromanaging their hours, and punishing them for mistakes.
Yeah, the old paint-by-numbers approach.
What would actually happen if you treated your current day job not as a series of tasks, but as your own personal apprenticeship?
Wow.
What if you walked in on Monday, handed your boss an IDP, defined your own boundaries, and took complete ownership of the blank canvas?
I mean, it would completely change the power dynamic of your career.
At the end of the day, whether you are trying to cure a disease or just trying to navigate a massive project at work, you are no longer painting by numbers. You've been handed the blank canvas. It's up to you to invent the color.